This is The Final Word, the weekly show with Jeff Lemon and Adam Collins, a show brought to you by Maurice Blackburn, the number one plaintiff law firm in Australia. And Adam, we're coming to you from Stomping Ground Beer Hall in Collingwood. We're recording in the place itself because this morning they canned the beers. The Final Word beers rolled off the production line this morning. It was as close as I imagine I will come in my life to the way that you felt when your first child was born. Watching my very own delightful hazy pale ale roll into the world. It's not a mashup of my face and your face as it might be in a genetic splicing situation, but it is, the name of our show, the thing that we've worked on.
Yep.
And the beer that they've worked on at Stomping Ground, and It's done. They're all cased up out the back, and it's very, very exciting.
That's cool. I'm looking forward to having a look later on. The limited edition operation that it is. It won't be so limited if we sell them out.
No.
It feels like we're doing a pretty good job of that. So you have the chance to either win Stomping Ground Final Word Beer by becoming a patron of ours or updating your patron pledge if you're already with us on that platform, or and we'll go into more of that later, or maybe we can do it now. Do you want to do it now?
Maybe. Well, yeah, I did the random draw before the show, anticipating this.
Oh, okay.
Diego Black won it, and I looked up Diego, and Diego's in the UK, which means we can't send it to the UK, Diego, but you are going to have to choose an Australian.
Oh, that's so good. This
who's
worked really well.
Receive your case of beer.
This worked really well in the past when people in the UK especially were able to identify friends of theirs in Australia. So this is a nice one. So Diego,
if you don't have any friends in Australia, you go on Discord and you see who you like there, and you figure out who you want to send it to. You can let us know. We'll get in touch. You'll get in touch, and you can find out where you want to send your case of Final Word Hazy Pale.
Or you can just buy it now because it's 4 days early.
Win one, buy 5. That's my philosophy.
We've been
Christmas.
saying 15 December. Well, let's roll it forward. 11 December, you can come down here and you can get yourself a case, or you can order it online. It'll be sent out to you pronto. What a great thing.
Lovely.
Excellent. A few bits and pieces to get into. First of all, thank you to the Australian Sports Commission for once again popping us into the final of the Best Sports Podcasts category for the annual awards due that they have. We were fortunate enough to win it at the SCG this year, which was a real highlight back in February to be recognised in such a significant media awards. That, we don't enter these things at all really, but that's the one we do. That's a real thing, and it's not judged by how many followers you have on Instagram like a lot of these awards are. This is judged by people in the industry who go through it diligently, and to make the Final Four is a lovely thing. So that'll be in February. Whether we can go back to back pennants.
3 years running on the shortlist is pretty good.
Yeah,
I think we'll take that.
That's it. Regardless of how it goes, it's nice to be in the final again.
As Robin Williams said, it's just an honour to be nominated. Ooh.
Well, it is with this one because I thought after winning it last year there might be a chance we might get sort of rotated out Scott Boland for Adelaide style.
Right.
We'll come to that in a sec.
Is he?
Just a theory of mine.
Okay.
Just a theory of mine. We'll come to it in a sec. We've got other Final Word business as well. The Final Word game is on Sunday at Brunswick Street Oval. I've just been texting Reggie, the Reds captain, so we're starting at 1 p.m. It's going to be a 30-over game. They are providing afternoon tea, which is very kind of them. It's at the main ground on Brunswick Street Oval as well, where Fitzroy used to play their footy, and Edinburgh, of course, have played their cricket for a long time. So we nearly got on there 2 years ago, but rain got in the way. Rain will not get in the way this time, I'm reliably informed. And we've got our final Word 11 is selected and confirmed and ready to roll. A 30-over game. Be there.
Be there. Come along and watch. My plan is to swing by here and pick up a bunch of beers and bring them down to the game. So I'm going to try to make that happen, if that can happen. And you played in the media game yesterday, and I have no idea what happened because I deliberately didn't ask you because I want the fresh match report. Is it a 30-second summary? Or is it
let's not go 30-second summary style, but I will say we did give ourselves a nickname yesterday. We need a nickname. We can't just be the Adam
Australian
White
Media 11.
We've gone the Media Rats.
The Rats.
The Media Rats. We're going to get caps made up for next year. It's Whitey's team, as opposed to the media team that I'll be captaining on Monday in Adelaide, the Aussie media against the England media. But this is a sort of Melbourne, more generic Melbourne sports media team where you often get a lot of football players involved and that type of thing.
You're saying it could be 6-0.
It could be 6-0.
Yeah. This might be the chance. This might be where the turns around. This might be where momentum turns for England.
It could be.
Yeah.
At this stage, I'm mostly focused on them having 11 cricketers and us having 11 cricketers.
Okay.
Once that hurdle has been cleared, I'll be a happy boy in terms of match management. But yesterday was gold. Remember the game you played a few years ago when Nick Riewoldt made a half century up top? He did so again yesterday. Former St Kilda superstar and these days media, big deal in the media. So he works, well, does Triple M breakfast, doesn't he? And he's all over the Channel 7 coverage in footy season. And he got 50 off the top. We got to 203 for 7, I think. By the end of our 32 overs, Adam Crosthwaite, who used to play for Victoria, of course, he got 40 odd retired. I got quick 15 or something at the end when just slogging out to finish off the innings. And then the game was in balance the whole way through when we were fielding. It never got too far in one way than the other, and then it did. They got away from us. And it felt like the game was over with 3 overs to go and 11 runs to defend. Mm-hmm. And Mitch Scott, our EP on SEN, who hasn't played cricket for like 15 years, Adam White, who's the skipper, said, have a bowl, Mitch. You know, you can bowl the last over and the third last over, and you get a couple of overs in and all the rest of it. Mitch bowling very slow but very straight. The one bloke who was still pongoing us, it was on 40 odd, I think, bloke that plays for Carlton. For whatever reason, Mitch, his slow hand grenades did for him. The last ball of the over, caught behind off the back of the bat by Crosthwaite, which got us back in the game. Then Tommy Morris bowled. Then I ran up to Whitey and said, change of plan, we can fucking win this. So Tommy Morris, who executed the best leg side stumping I think I've ever seen in the flesh, down the leg side of John Donohoe, medium pacer up to the stumps, and he executed it off the half volley, one hand stumping, running off like he just won a gold medal, which is perfect. It's a bit like Steve Smith the other night. He was back in the field by this point, Crosthwaite keeping, given he was, Shane Warne's keeper for a long time. He probably gets the gig in the business end. Tommy bowled an over that went for 4 or 5, and Louis Cameron took a clutch catch on the boundary. So I had 5 runs to play with in the final over, and I thought, well, they're going to get there anyway, because the bloke coming in took me down a couple of years ago. Very good cricketer, Verve, who I've played against in the past, and managed to find the inside part of his bat from around the wicket, and it ballooned up to Nick Riewoldt at square leg, who did a 4-bobble. He got to the contest, and it took him...
Back with the flight?
Back with the flight, exactly. He managed to get there on the 4th rebound.
Oh, wow.
And then last ball...
like India's women in the World Cup final.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But he caught it to his credit, and then like the embrace with him when he took that catch, knowing that I had 2 runs to play with the last ball.
Yep.
Found my length, was worked into the onside. Tommy rushes in from mid wicket and Jonty Rhodes style sprints at the non-striker stumps to complete the run out. The Media Rats win by 1 run.
Wow!
It was a ridiculous finish, and always a privilege to play at the Albert Ground. Just want to say to the guys at Melbourne from the 29ers that they host us every year. We've got an ODB game there in a couple of weeks on the 23rd of December. They're a wonderful group. They host so beautifully down there. It's one of the best grounds in Australia. Mm-hmm. So total privilege and great day, and a day off for work. My first day off for an embarrassingly long time, which I very much enjoyed.
Very good. Very good. While I was having a day off near Brisbane, that we'll talk about when Emma John comes on the show in the second segment. But let's get stuck into what we got to get into.
Yeah, so it's basically Australian stuff first half, or Ashes/Australia stuff first half. Mm-hmm. Then we spread our wings and go around the world in the second half. And I'm very mindful that Virat Kohli's made 200s in the last week. That will get mentioned in the second half of the show if you're watching on YouTube and you are interested in that. Yep. Let's start with some Ashes news lines. First of all, Josh Hazelwood has been ruled out. The secondary injury is the one that's got him the Achilles, which is sad, because to say he was at the peak of his powers in the middle of this year would be a gross understatement.
Even in October, in
4 weeks
white
ago,
ball stuff.
Yeah, 4 weeks ago against India, he has been bowling better than ever. So there's a lot of chat, is he done? I think that's coming from a place where you're equating a frustrating injury that he's picked up as somehow being correlative to his career. Josh Hazelwood is not done. Josh Hazelwood has got an injury at the moment. Yep. They will desperately, and Andrew McDonald said this, want him back for the T20 World Cup. And yet he's close to a milestone, and that does focus the attention if he were to pick up a string of injuries from here. But don't doubt that this guy was back to his absolute best. A bit like Mitchell Starc. These two have never been better in the last year.
The issue is how little Test cricket they play in the next little while. So if he misses the Ashes, the next opportunity is South Africa in October.
We've got the two against the two in August against Bangladesh. Yeah. So hopefully Hazelwood's good to play in those, and he can clean up and get over the 300.
Slightly different taking your 300th in Cairns.
Yeah, he'll take it. He'll take it.
Against Sumya Sarkar.
It was good enough for Martin Love.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm not saying it doesn't count. Obviously, we are the most it counts show in the world, but still a bit different to doing it, say, in the first test in Perth, that he got a bag of 5.
well, on that, if he doesn't play in those test matches and they hold him back for South Africa, which is also a possibility that they would go, no, we're going to keep our precious resources ready for that series. That wouldn't be a wild thing if they try and use the Bangladesh tests for a few other creative options. Although World Test Championship, they wouldn't want to take the piss, but you know what I mean. I can see a world where
I think if you're an Australian Test player now, you say, "Give me every match you got." You don't want to miss.
That's
out
true.
On games.
But just to segue to South Africa, we learnt during the week. Daniel Cheney's reporting information that's been sort of circulating in my world as well. Looks like the first test will be on the 8th of October against South Africa, and the first two are likely to be up north because of the climate at that time of year, and then we will come down to Cape Town for the third, which will be a relatively big week, I think, given what happened at Cape Town the last time. These teams would have played Test cricket there, which will be, it'll be 8 years.
8 years, yeah.
8.5 year gap between what happened at Newlands then and the Australia. I wonder how many players from Newlands 16 will be playing at Newlands 20. Newlands 18 will be playing at Newlands 26.
Not many. Rabada.
Maybe all the Australian bowlers.
Markram.
I mean, it was the big four that played that test.
Yeah.
You can see a world where it is Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins, Lyon.
With Smith.
And,
well, yeah, that's
bring back
it.
Painey, I think, to take the gloves for that one. But yeah, so that's the Hazelwood. So he's not. I just want to say that he's not done. I think it's too easy to jump on an injury for an older cricketer, and he's had other injuries, and that's true. But yeah, I don't think that's the end of the Hazelwood story.
He's too good when he is fit.
Yeah, that's it. He's not getting overtaken.
But it makes I wonder a bit more with Mark Wood, who's also out for the rest of the series, because he's so fleetingly fit, and the fact that he did all of that rehab, all of that getting ready for this series, came back, bowled 11 overs in Perth, and he's done.
A lot of work for 11 overs.
Yeah.
Gutted for him.
Loss.
He was such a big presence in the series here 4 years ago, and I know he didn't take any wickets on that first evening, but boy, he bowled quickly, and you could sense that if he got it right a few times in the series, he could go through Australia the way he did at Leeds in 23 when he was brought into the side, and it was such a presence. But yeah, that won't be here. So Wood out. In comes Matthew Fisher, the Yorkshire, now Surrey quick, who played one test match in the Caribbean 4 years ago. Good selection out of the Lions. I obviously watched him bowl a lot. I saw some crazies on social media saying that he's only getting picked because he plays for Surrey. That is just that demonstrates that people didn't watch the championship this year and how well Fisher bowled. Are you
suggesting that people have an opinion on international cricket without watching domestic cricket?
Well, it's less about that.
Never happened.
It's more about people purporting to be county cricket ultras who are like, it's because he's from Surrey. I'm like, well, he's played a season at Surrey, but his numbers weren't even that exceptional. It's the lived experience of watching him play, watching the cricket. You would know that Fisher is of a standard that they could vault him into the team. That wouldn't be crazy because they will have to recalibrate for Adelaide.
Yes.
You can see a world where Cast doesn't play and Atkinson doesn't play, I reckon.
Atkinson's been very unimpressive.
He's been inconsistent so far. He's bowled very well and then very poorly. And I think Cast might just need a quiet week after what happened to him. Such a chastening experience at Brisbane. So you would think that it's pots and tongue, but
maybe Cast can go back to the casino, win some more cash.
Yeah, or whatever it was that he was had that. We shouldn't say, by the way, we shouldn't assert that it was from that, but Cam's piece in Cricket et al., which talked about Bryden Cast having a wad of cash that went flying across a cafe in Perth, is a very, very funny bit of detail that was in his article a few days ago after they lost it at Brisbane. But so the other thing with England, Jeff, is that in a test match at Adelaide, Australia have already said that Nathan Lyon's playing, right? They've just said it. They haven't
Which they should. They're so needlessly coy about things all the time, the Australians.
No, but the way that Andrew McDonald...
we might do this,
they didn't play him at Brisbane. They were right to be coy before Brisbane. They didn't play him. But this time around, for what it's worth, McDonald's like, conditions change, red ball, day match, Adelaide, hot weather, they're going to need a spinner. What do England... I think one of the low-key errors of their way in the last couple of years is they have built up a young spinner with limited experience in Shahab Bashir for this exact scenario, and it feels like they have formed a view that he's bordering on unselectable. Got smashed for the Lions and the game last week against Australia A as well. I mean, I would be very, very surprised if Shahab Bashir plays, which means their configuration will remain the same, and Will Jackson, probably Joe Root, will have to do a lot of heavy lifting in the absence of and I know that, like, I'm not saying that Will Jackson, Joe Root will do a poor job, but there is something to be said for having a specialist bowler whose only job is to concentrate on that one core task. Yeah. Whereas Root and Jacks, are, they've got all-round responsibilities. In the case of Jackson, Root's primary responsibility is to concentrate on batting at number 4 and making runs. It's a kind of a mental difference when you've got a specialist.
It feels like, and I know some of these things have been overused with this England side, but it's still fundamentally true, I believe, that when you've got a vibes team, this has been a vibes shift in terms of how Stokes batted in Brisbane, and then the way that this team's run on vibes has been it's not just the attacking part with the bat, we're going to go and try to score at this rate and over, but it's things like the Tom Hartley episode where he comes on, bowls his first spell, gets massacred, goes at 7.5 and over, and Stokes goes, come back and bowl another spell, come back and bowl again. And there was that aggressiveness with backing players who on paper weren't good enough, but in practice sometimes became good enough. Jack's taking that fiver in the first test that he played, for instance, being able to make something happen by being supported. And that's what they've done with Bashir up until this point, by saying, well, on paper you shouldn't be in this side, on paper you shouldn't be anywhere near it, but we've decided you're good enough and we're going to back you in. And it has worked from time to time. And a fiver against Zimbabwe isn't the biggest thing in the world, but he took wickets in that test match. And then they're at a point now where that bravado has evaporated, and they're not, they're now shy, they're now timid about picking him, whereas up until this point Stokes would have gone, fuck it, we'll pick him anyway because he's going to surprise you. And I don't think they believe that they're going to surprise anyone anymore.
I reckon that the first 2 test matches, it made sense for him not to really be in the frame. They should have won at Perth based on their bowling, and they capitulated, and they ran into Travis Head. And this week at Brisbane,
just bowled horribly.
They didn't bowl well, but I don't think Bashir was going to move the dial. Here at Adelaide, at Adelaide, we know that that's going to, not least because it's going to be hot, right? We know at this time of year at Adelaide, it's likely to be really bad conditions for, really hot conditions for fielding teams, and having a spinner there provides respite for the quicks. And look, that might be, Jax has played that role for Surrey, but I guess my point is that, this is what the whole Bashir experiment was around him having, and he took 48 wickets in his first year in Test cricket, second most in the world last year, did well in India, and has done well at other times, but all of the cricket he's played this year, he's gone at loads per over. He's not been able to build dot ball pressure. And if we saw one thing out of last week, it was the way that Australia were able to smother England at times that created the errors. Well, Bashir is improbable it's going to be able for him to do the same thing to Australia, to build that dot ball pressure over time as a spinner, as a holding role. So that's of interest to me. On the other side of to go back to Australia, I don't know what you reckon, Jeff, but it feels to me that Khawaja's fate almost exclusively lies in the hands of Travis Head now. Like, if Head wants to bat 5 at Adelaide again, where he's made 300s in his last 3 starts, the squad's been announced.
Yep.
There's no one else in it. Khawaja's playing. If Head bats 5, Khawaja's playing. Right? So, I'd
Head
imagine...
bats 5, Inglis is out, Khawaja comes in.
Well, I'm just making the point that if it would seem to me very... they would have another opener in the squad if they wanted to protect against that. So... either Head is opening and Khawaja's not playing, or Head's saying, well, I'm batting 5 for the day test match. I'm going to make the most of a softer ball and play that card. And in which case, Khawaja's getting one more chance. So that's what you can take from the squad being virtually unchanged, with the exception of Cummins formally coming into it.
Right, and this is what I was getting at with being coy about things, with McDonald saying, oh, well, Khawaja could bat in the middle order. I mean, that's not going to happen. Like, surely that's not going to happen.
It seems improbable, because they wouldn't dispense with Inglis in that scenario, would they? I don't think they're going to play Khawaja in the middle order at the expense of Inglis. I know he said that, but that seems unlikely to me.
Right. So that's
drop Cameron Green, which doesn't seem viable either.
That's also not going to happen given the heat and given the requirement for extra bowling. Yeah. So all of it's resting on this Test match. I don't know. I think there's too much sentimentality around Khawaja. There seems to be a sort of they're honouring his status as the most senior player and kind of the grand old man of the game at the moment.
But are they? If they were honouring his status, wouldn't he just have declared that he's opening this week?
But I mean, I think that's why he's still floating about. But I don't know if they just haven't made a call either way.
But to be fair, you'd be making a call on the back of one innings, right? Like, if you look at it on the other side, he didn't get the... You and I spoke about him getting 4 innings.
Not so much that you say he deserves to be dropped on the back of that one innings, but you say, well, we've got something else now and that's working.
Yeah.
So,
That's the more compelling
things
argument.
have changed.
Yeah.
And you can, that happens in relationships, that happens in business, that happens, we had these plans, but things have changed.
It happens in cricket teams. Usman Khawaja came back into the side 4 years ago, and it may have ended Marcus Harris's Test career at a time when Harris was
going all right.
at his most confident as a Test cricketer. So you're right, things can change, and collateral damage can be anyone, even someone that's played 85 Test matches and will go down as one of Australia's most successful openers of the modern era. But that's still in the offing. The other thing is, what Australia do with their bowling. Cummins is playing, obviously. Lyon is playing, obviously. I sort of think Boland for the MCG is such a tantalising prospect that leaving him out or rotating him through this week to facilitate that, okay, fine. And then one of Noosa or Doggett playing, and obviously, therefore, one missing out. I'm not sure where I would go on that.
I could see that because 2021, McDonald specifically said we had Scott Boland in the squad to bowl at Melbourne and Sydney. That was the plan because of how effective he was and how well he knew the Melbourne deck and then what he could do on a Sydney pitch, where he took 10 against India in the Test earlier this year.
If it were me, I'd play Noosa. Funny that. I'd play Noosa, but the reason I would play him is
every Test.
Yeah, they've actually stumbled upon something with England here with Carey up to the pegs, which does change the dynamic of England's side. You can't gallop at a bowler if the keeper's up to the stumps, especially a keeper who's in nick like Carey is. So it'll mean that when Noosa's in operation, that it'll keep Crawley and Brooke at home as the two who are most likely to and Smith as the players most likely to dance and walk at you. To an extent, Stokes, although Stokes perhaps less so at the moment. So I think tactically, Noosa over Doggett on a pitch that's more likely, if we're hearing, is to be correct. And what the Premier, Pete Malinowska, said the other day about to the curator saying make sure it's a flat one. If it is a flat one, then Noosa providing a similar support to what he did this week. We saw how effective it was with Carey. Carey will be a busy boy again in the heat, but that's part of the job sometimes.
And back Noosa while he's up and confident and bubbly, and you take advantage of that, strike while the iron's hot. A bit unfair on Doggett, who, as I've banged on about a bunch of times, hasn't been allowed to do the job that he actually is qualified to do because he's had to bowl the bouncer stuff so much, which just isn't his go in first-class cricket, really.
Bowled well in Brisbane. He'll play other Test matches this series, just a straight conditions thing if I were doing it. One more thing. The England guys need to stop engaging with the betting companies. I don't mean them on the punt, but that was very obviously a plant, those guys that posed with Ben Stokes yesterday. I don't know for sure, but it strikes me as pretty obvious that it was some stunt.
They're radio, they're local radio.
Oh, they're local radio, sorry. Yeah. Local radio host or betting one and the same these days.
Well,
pranksters full stop.
It was a great example, though, of how doing pranksterism is fucking hard. It's like not everyone can be John Safran, right? Like not everyone's got the titanium self-confidence to just throw themselves in situations. And I sort of dabbled in this a little bit in 2013 with some of the video stuff that I was shooting during the Ashes there. It's hard work. It's hard work to throw yourself into a public situation and sort of have the chutzpah to pull it off, right? And these guys, they put their whites on and they had these bad signs that looked like they'd been drawn by somebody's kids, scrawled onto a piece of paper about Bazball or whatever. But Stokes goes and takes a picture with them, and in this photo, the two of them look so much more embarrassed than Ben Stokes does. Like, they're so awkward and uncomfortable. They're like, oh shit, they've called our bluff, basically.
It actually played.
And now we have to pretend.
I reckon it's played well for Stokes on a couple of fronts because it's neutralised a bit of the Noosa stuff as well. There were some photos of them having a beer yesterday. Shock horror.
Oh wow.
Guys on day off have beer.
Have beer.
Maybe I don't know. I know I started this by saying Stokes should avoid hanging out with or getting photos taken with that type of bad faith actor.
Sure.
But maybe it worked. I'm not sure. One other bit of news on the Aussie team that probably won't be relevant to this series, but there's a world where it could be. So Mitch Marsh played the Shield game against Victoria at the MCG on the weekend, Jeff. Then he went into the dressing rooms and said to his teammates, "That's me done. Not playing Shield cricket anymore. I'm going to retire from first-class cricket." Tom Decent broke this story on Monday in Brisbane. But then, as confirmed by Andrew McDonald, he is theoretically still available for this series because he wasn't going to play any more first-class cricket whilst this series was on regardless. So I get the logic to that. It is a bit quirky, but yeah, that's the end of Mitch Marsh as a first-class cricketer, and unless something remarkable happens to, I guess it would need to be Green would need to be injured, and then
Webster. Green and Webster would have to run into each other in there.
But then again, Marsh isn't really bowling, so it might be that if they lost to Adelaide and Melbourne,
Travis Head pinged a hammy, and they wanted someone who could come in and smack it.
That's it. If they lost 2 games in a row now, and they've got the 5th test, and Head there is a world.
Yeah, he's the Laurie Nash of this series. He comes in for the 5th test at 2-all.
But he'll be the captain of the one-day squad. He'll be the captain. Well, he's the captain of the T20 side full time, so he'll be the captain at the World Cup. I think the one-day captain is formally still Pat, isn't it?
Cummins.
So I'm
technically
fairly certain that when push comes to shove in that one-day team late next year, late 27. By then,
maybe he wants another one.
I would think that Marsh should be the full-time white ball captain in both formats by then. He's still a senior player.
Longer term, from here to 2027, I would back Pat Cummins to be fit for that World Cup ahead of Mitch Marsh to be fit for that World Cup.
That's true. That's a good point as well. It's a fair point. We should rattle through the Shield round that I've referred to then before we go to our first break today. So, mentioned the Vics played WA at the G. A great win. They won by 6 wickets. WA were bowled out for 194 with Sam Elliott, who has got the golden arm of golden arms. Another fifer. Has he ever not taken 4 or 5 when playing Shield cricket? Yeah. He gets dropped all the time. Comes back, takes wickets. So he's got that going for him, no doubt. Vics make 255. Blake McDonald, good story. So he makes 79 in the first innings, and spoiler, gets 109 not out in the chase. He's journeyman, ACT cricketer, went to New South Wales, didn't quite work, 1-year deal, got punted from them, playing grade cricket at St Kilda, had a good year last year, into the Shield team, 5th, whatever it was, first class game, 79 and a match-winning 109 not out when they were chasing 195 in the 4th innings. So good on him. A lot of love for this guy, having had to do it the hard way, and now at 27, it proves that you don't need to make it by the time he's 21. First-class cricket, you can make it a little bit later, and that is perfectly fine. He could be the James Podsiadly of Victorian
Let's
cricket.
Hope so. And also a ton in there for Sam Whiteman, which always makes me happy when there's a Sam Whiteman 100. What made a lot of other people much, much happier was another Sam. Yeah. Slamming Sam Constance.
Good on him.
A ton and a 50 in the game as they smashed Queensland at the MCG. He's back. Straight back into the squad.
He's got a TV deal as well. See my Sunrise yesterday?
I know.
Yeah, he's the new ambassador for 7 Cricket, Sam. So he's making good decisions.
Getaway before you know it.
Wrong channel. But yeah, he and Brendan Julian can do a travel show together one day maybe. New South Wales got 471 for 7 declared with Constance 116. And then they rolled Queensland for 92. Sheriff Charlie Slobo took 5 for 9, his first fifer in first class cricket. We did a 5 for 9 on Storytime the other day. If you want to listen to me nearly crying on Storytime, you can go to that. Thanks for people who got in touch around that, by the way. That was very kind of you. New South Wales, 143 for 4 declared. Sam, a quick 50. This is important, obviously, that he's done this twice in a game. And then Queensland set approximately 1 million and bowled out for 181 with Tanvir Sangha in the wickets. This Constance storyline, just when Cam Kellaway had probably overtaken him, right? Because I think Kellaway plays Test cricket this year, somewhere, somehow, or next year, sorry. Somewhere, somehow, Kellaway.
Big story if he plays it this year.
Yeah. Well, he might. If Khawaja played and failed at Adelaide and they won an opener for Melbourne. Cam Kellaway, Boxing Day, debut. Constance did it. Talk it up, boys and girls.
Talk it up. Get them both in. And then, last game, South Australia made heaps against Tassie. Liam Scott made a big 100, and they rolled them cheaply either side of the SA innings.
Buckingham 4 for in both innings. The ever consistent, ever reliable Geordie Buckingham 8 wickets in the match. And after 6 rounds, we go to the BBL. Victoria have won 5 and lost 1. What a great start! They're on 41 points. Queensland follow on the peloton. Is Queensland 26, South Australia 24, New South Wales 23, then drops to the Tasmanian side on 19 and WA on 15. So Victoria, you don't want to say they're guaranteed of a Shield final, but it would need to go horribly wrong in the last 4 rounds from where they are at the moment, clearly on top. Jeff, we are just about ready to go to a break. All I'll say is in the Lions game, which we haven't really covered, but that's where Kellaway made runs. Yes. And Nathan McSweeney made unbeaten 223.
And Shoaib Bashir turned up with the ball for
and
Nunfa.
And Xavier Bartlett made runs and took wickets.
83?
There are things about that.
Xavier Bartlett making big half centuries in first-class cricket is a remarkable
He's another one. He'll play Test cricket next year, Bartlett. I feel certain of that.
I feel strongest about that too. And Asa Tribe made runs, made 100.
Before we go to our break, we should remind you, as we always do, that our primary and principal partner on the Final Word is Maurice Blackburn
and
Maurice
MBs.
And we're off to the Maurice Blackburn Christmas do tonight, which is why I'm wearing shirt sleeves and a jacket, and why Jeff is wearing not shorts.
I'm wearing jeans and flip-flops.
Well, yes. Anyway, a point of difference. Let's be authentic to the way we are. But no, we have been.
I mean, it's early in the day. I'll be there later. I've got time.
You've got time to get changed, whereas I don't have time to get changed.
I still won't be wearing.
We're telling you the stories of Maurice Blackburn through the summer. Another horrible story here, which again, I, in some respects, it's sad to tell the stories, but on the other, it's important to understand how this intersects with the legal system. So, Jennifer, at age 72, found herself flourishing in the golden years of her retirement. She was walking 10 kilometres a day as part of an active lifestyle, and then she was struck with mesothelioma, the asbestos disease. So this is because in the 80s...
This is such a consistent thread with older people.
72 and fit as a fiddle, and just gets struck down with a... Anyway, so in the 80s, she was working at a local tavern in Launceston, and for 6 months she walked past and frequented the construction site of an adjoining drive-through bottle shop owned by the tavern. Unbeknownst to her, the construction site was contaminated with asbestos dust and fibre due to the disturbance of the asbestos-containing materials. So the Maurice Blackburn team helped Jennifer pursue a claim for compensation lodged with the Asbestos Compensation Commissioner on the basis that her condition was reasonably attributable to her exposure to asbestos in the course of her employment in the state of Tasmania. So with Jennifer's compensation, whilst it won't restore her health, obviously, it will provide her and her family with some financial security. And by sharing her journey, Jennifer hopes to educate others and encourage them to take steps to protect themselves and their loved ones from asbestos-related illnesses, and to seek legal advice in the unfortunate event that a diagnosis is made. So Maurice Blackburn, on behalf of hardworking people, this is not the first asbestos-related story, and I suspect it won't be the last either. It's a sort of a sorry time. And that it can be as random as that there happens to be a building site next to where you work for even a short period of time. It's such a cruel way that chance works, but at least there is some ability to seek recourse. There, on behalf of hardworking Australians since 1919, Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm, some of the best lawyers in the country. Learn more about them in the show notes or Google them, and we're always very proud to be in association with them. This is the Final Word Cricket Podcast with Adam Collins and Jeff Lemon, and with us down the line from Australia, I am thrilled to say, welcome back, Emma John. Hello.
Hello, cheers. Nice to see you.
You've made it. You're here. You're on Australian soil. You're in South Australia at the moment. But more importantly, Emma, I got to be Emma John while I was in Brisbane, because the one Ashes capital that you're not going to get to, you're doing this trip around with Tourism Australia, and we're working with them to talk to you about where you're going. But you haven't had the chance to go anywhere yet because you've just got to the Eyre Peninsula. But we were in Brisbane. We had an extra day. We knew you weren't getting there. And so I said, I'm Emma John, please send me on a trip. Thank you to England and thank you to Australia for losing the test and winning the test respectively inside 4 days, so I had an extra day to do something.
Did telling them that you were Emma John get you extra special treatment? I really hope it did.
It absolutely did. So if you're in Brisbane and you're like, where do I go that's close to Brisbane? I'm reliably informed the biggest sand islands in the world are the ones just off the coast of Brisbane: North Stradbroke, South Stradbroke, Bribie Island, Moreton Island.
Yeah. South Straddy Island,
right?
Year 10 school camp. Doesn't get any better than that. What times in my life they were.
Right, and there's almost nobody living on South Straddy. There's like a full sort of suburban community almost on North Stradbroke. And then Moreton Island, there's Tangalooma Resort, and there's a couple of small communities there. So they said I was getting sent to Moreton Island. Everybody I knew in Brisbane was like, oh, you're going to Tangalooma. Like they know where that is. And they sent me out there, and I got to have the full day off package. I did all the activities. I rode quad bikes. I went snorkeling. They've got all these shipwrecks. There's like 10 or 15 wrecked ships in a row. I saw like 10 of them, Emma, and I got to swim down and look inside them, and they've become a reef, and they're full of fish. The most iridescent, wildly coloured fish all swimming around inside a shipwreck that you can scuba. I really want to scuba it. I want to go back and actually get under the water properly.
Yeah, right.
This was awesome. Then they've got dolphins. They have wild dolphins that swim up to the beach at sunset because they're like, hey, I heard there might be some fish here. And then you go and feed the dolphins fish, which is cool. But the best bit was that I got a helicopter back, tiny little like 2-seater chopper, back from the island to the mainland, which was the most extraordinary thing because you're low altitude flying and the pilot normally flies like sky cranes, so huge choppers that lift the shipping containers and stuff. So this guy's like he's driving a Holden Barina. He's just like, yeah, whatevs. Let's go over here. Let's have a look at that. Let's go around the coast of here. And then we come in and land in what was literally about the space of 3 cars in a car park. It was just the tiniest little spot. And he's like, boom, pinpoint. Watching people do something they're really good at is amazing. But yeah, I didn't know that this resort was out there. But I met Hank is the assistant manager of the hotel. He's 80 years old. He's like, I came here 30 years ago to work for 3 months and I never left. You can see why. It's spectacular. You take the ferry over.
Is it all white sand? Is that what completely sort of, and then that sort of turquoise blue water?
Yes.
So because
exactly
it's funny you said about the diving. My only experience of diving, proper scuba diving, is in Queensland.
Right.
I went to an island called Lady Elliot Island, which is in the
southern
Great
point
Barrier
of the Great
Reef.
Barrier Reef.
Yeah, and it's really
Good
lovely
knowledge from
because
you.
obviously, Great Barrier Reef is obviously, we know that there are all sorts of eco issues, and you have to be really careful about how you travel there. But this is this little coral cay that's set up entirely as a conservation place. So you go there and you can dive, but you're doing it all incredibly responsibly, which was really important to me, I think.
Yeah, I wrote a piece about coral bleaching for The Guardian many years ago, which was almost directly related to what's going on at the Great Barrier Reef. And it's one of those things where you get out there and enjoy this extraordinary part of Australia whilst it is in its pomp. Because there'll be a time based on trends, ocean temperatures rising, when the fundamentals will change.
And you can,
but that's not right now.
It makes you feel good that you can do something that's kind of actually supporting the conservation. I mean, I think the place around Lady Elliot Island is big for the manta ray conservation, but also the turtles. So, literally, there's no lighting on the island except for this kind of low-level red light. So, as soon as it gets dark, they can't have white light on the island because it upsets the turtles and then they can't find their nest or they can't find their way back to the sea, maybe. So you just have to get around with these little low-level red lightings. That's what I remember about it. It was awesome.
Tangalooma is like that. So the resort that's on Moreton, it's like almost all of Moreton is national park, and then there's this one little bit where they're allowed to have the resort, but it's not like a super luxe, decadent resort because they're trying to be sensible about the amount of consumption, the amount of electricity they need, the amount of fresh water they need, all that kind of thing.
By the way, I can't believe that we're talking about Queensland tourism and nobody said the word Noosa yet.
No.
We did earlier on the program, Emma. I believe you me. Noosa has come up already.
Can I just say,
it'll never be the same. I honestly think Noosa will now become Cricket Tourism 101. Jeff and I did a video out the front of the Birmingham nightclub where Joe Root got belted by David Warner years ago. We've been to the Embargo nightclub in Bristol, where, of course, the Stokes Alex Hales Farrago played out in 2017. Now, cricket tourists will go to Noosa for that reason. What a boon for the economy.
Look, I actually feel really sorry for the England cricket team right now because, honestly, they've got time. Noosa's not that far away from Brisbane. And it's a beautiful place. And also, I think, it's quite smart. I remember going there and doing walking trail to the cliffs, which are incredible. And, there's all these wonderful places called Boiling Point, or I don't know, Hell's Gates or whatever, because it's where all the water kind of crashes up against the cliff. But the actual town, it feels like you're in the French Riviera. So I'm not surprised they went at all because it's a bit smart.
It has other cricket links as well.
Yeah,
Noosa, but it's close to Brisbane. Queensland is enormous. Like the Great Barrier Reef would go from Rome to London, and that's only part of the coast of Queensland. If you drive sort of Melbourne to Brisbane, then you drive Brisbane to the north of Queensland.
Double it.
You still won't get there.
Double up.
You won't get to the top of Queensland in the same distance.
No.
It's absolutely enormous. You spent a fair bit of time.
Yeah, I once calculated that I spent 70 weekends living in Brisbane in my days in politics, Emma. So I feel like, this became an increasingly big part of my life. And often we go to the Sunshine Coast as well. It's the proximity to the Sunshine Coast and the Gold Coast from Brisbane, with Brisbane right in the middle. It lends itself to the day trips you're referring to.
I love the Sunshine Coast. My one and only surfing lesson was, I can't remember if it was Mooloolaba or whether it was Alexandra Heads.
It would have been Alex Heads, yeah. So Alex Heads and Mooloolaba next to each other with Maroochydore in that area. Me and the girls have stayed out there a couple of times in the last 5 years.
It turns out that I can't even stay on a surfboard if it's on the sand. That is how poor my balance is. So that was my one and only.
That Maroochydore Surf Club, I've got great memories of Winnie as a little girl crawling around the carpets there and getting absolutely filthy with beer-soaked floors, and she loved every bit of it. But Clint Robinson's all over the branding there as well. Who won a gold medal in 1992, and he was a member of the Maroochydore Surf Club. So it's got nice links back to Australia.
There's one childhood memory that I just have to get off my chest here because it's so extraordinary. It was only when we were saying that we were going to talk about Queensland that I remembered it. When I was a little girl, we actually did a road trip all the way from Sydney to Cairns because we're that kind of family. But I remember doing the Coranda Scenic Railway. It's this little railway that goes through the rainforest, basically. And you're on these little 100-year-old carriages, like proper tiny little railway. And anyway, I'm on there with my parents and my sister and my gran. And my gran was the biggest Home and Away fan. And we're sitting there in this carriage. And we realised, and because this is when Home and Away had just started, by the way, this is Nostalgia 101. If you remember back to when Home and Away started, there was a character called Frank. And Frank was played by an actor called Alex Paps. And we're sitting there and literally we're all like, isn't that Frank from Home and Away? And so, of course, because we couldn't resist, we did go up to him and say, excuse me, are you Frank from Home and Away? We didn't know the actor's name. And bless him, Alex Paps, if you're listening, thank you so much for being really, really kind to this little 8-year-old girl, because he took a picture with us and signed an autograph, and we were beside ourselves.
The other side of this, when we talk about Melbourne, it'll be about seeing Toadie in Melbourne in the backpacker bars in the 1990s. That's all to come, Emma. Just to round out on Brisbane from my perspective, having spent so much time there, I guess it was 15 years ago, Jeff. The bulk of the time was between 2008 and 2013, the years that I was spending loads of time in Brizzy. Now it's like, it is fundamentally different. I don't know whether it's the energy of being an Olympic city, because Sydney had that experience in 1993 when Sydney won the right to host the 2000 Olympics. I suppose, Emma, it was comparable to London, 2005 to 2012. How a city feels when you know this, the whole world is going to be watching. Brisbane is a destination city in ways that it wasn't historically. I know this week our British colleagues from the English touring pack who I was chatting to about Brisbane, they're like, wow, this has been an awesome week. We've loved this more than we have on previous visits. And I reckon that was consistent across tour groups as well. And I felt it even. I go there every year, but I'm like, this place has got serious energy at the moment, no matter where you are, be it in the middle of town or out in the inner ring of suburbs where there's so many great places to go out and have fun. And God knows we had some fun this week. And then, of course, the day trips that Jeff's referring to. So, yeah, Brisbane does feel, in the best possible way, different and evolved, knowing that we've got this thing coming in 2032.
Oh, and the performing arts there, they have really got really good. I remember going to a big production of The Producers and having an awesome time and being like, oh, they have great theatre up here.
Oh, just this week they had A Few Good Men was in Brisbane when I was desperate to go and see it with our dear friend and colleague Izzy Westbury. Didn't quite work out in time. Our mate Andy Zaltzman from Test Match Special was playing a stand-up gig the night before the Test match. I went to watch him as well. Packed house, couldn't get a seat. So, yeah, that performing arts piece, the vibrancy culturally of a city, that's very much evident in what we've seen there this week.
Lady Gaga played there a couple of days ago.
Right, yep.
Huge.
I like how I've mentioned Zaltzman before Lady Gaga.
Zaltzman and Gaga.
You see where my priorities lie.
Icons.
He should be proud.
The bookends of the test, I would say. You mentioned surfing. I went sandboarding out on Moreton, where there are these huge sand dunes out in the middle of the island, where mostly it's forested, and then there's just this completely unvegetated area, and they have no idea why, which nothing grows there. But there's these huge sand dunes, and they put you on this kind of waxed, laminated wooden board. You're not allowed to stand up on it because you'll probably face plant, but you lie down on it and pull the end of the board up and then go flying down these sand dunes. It's absolutely terrifying.
That sounds very Mad Max.
Very acute angles, yeah. But I managed not to eat a face full of sand. Well, I shot some video. I haven't watched it back, but I don't know how it turned out. But it's mostly just me going, ah!
I was going to say, who cares about the video? It's the audio we want, Jeff. We want the sound of the screams.
No, the audio will never be released. That is my promise to you.
I just... So you were talking about your lovely helicopter ride to get where you were going. I'm on the Eyre Peninsula, but I've just arrived on this lovely little private island called Louth. And I came here by amphibious craft.
Oh.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
No, like over sound.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like land and sea. So it was
land and sea, like a hovercraft.
So I got on the boat while we were on dry land, and then we kind of rode it. We drove it over the beach into the water. It was really cool. That's why I'm sitting here on my,
car?
with my little welcome drink here. A very nice little Prosecco cocktail.
All of that. So thanks to Tangalooma Resort, who had me out there pretending to be Emma. And I mean, the helicopter ride is bizarre when it's like I'm going to the airport to take the cheapest possible domestic flight back to Melbourne. And then I'm like got my private chopper pilot chopping me off. These are incongruous things, but they're all possibilities in Australia. Our message to you, if you're listening, Australia brings memories that last a lifetime. It's a country where you make genuine connections like we are making with Emma on her trip. We're going to see you at some point. We'll cross over, but we're looking forward to hearing about what you get up to in South Australia now that you've been in the country for almost 24 hours. You've got adventures to come, so we'll catch up with you soon.
Have a great time.
Thanks, I will. I'll see you very soon.
Thank you, Emma John, for that latest instalment. Great to have you with us once more. Let's go across the ditch. Let's go to New Zealand. Let's initially go to Christchurch, where the first test last week was quite remarkable. For about an hour there, only an hour, I'm not pretending it was an all-day thing, it looked like the Windies were genuinely going to chase down 531 for victory. It looked it. Now, they ended up making 457 for 6 when they shook hands. They completely shut up shop, as they were right to do. I saw some criticism of the Windies, but they had 3 number 11s, to come.
Yes.
Justin Graves, 202 not out. We've seen moments from Graves in his brief test career which suggest that he might be a player.
Yep.
This is the clearest sign yet. Yes, it was
Stuff
a depleted.
In Australia was quality.
Yeah.
There were
little moments in the Windies.
in that toweling up. Sometimes he was the player.
And he can seriously bowl.
Stuck
That's
it out
something
for a
that's
bit.
worth noting. So the test match as it went, 231 New Zealand with Williamson top scoring with 52. The Windies then bundled out for 167. Shy Hope got runs, nobody else did. Jacob Duffy took a fifer. And then New Zealand rattled up the scoreboard. 466 for 8 declared, with Ravindra top scoring with 172. Kemar Roach 5 for 78. The Windies in the fourth innings were nowhere near it. And then Kemar Roach walks out and bats with Justin Graves for the remainder of the test match. Completes his first test half-century, a 50 and a fifer for Kemar Roach at 37. He's like 9 away from the magical 300. Long may he reign. We love King Kemar on this show. He's a brilliant man, great.
What was he on, 284 before this?
Something like that, and he desperately wants it. How some batters and bowlers are coy about milestones. Not our Kemar. Kemar wants 300 test wickets, and he's getting nearer and nearer to that milestone. So, bowled.
They're actually playing the second test as we speak.
They are right now. Can you give me a score update? And by the way, I should have said that what helped the Windies in the final innings was that Nathan Smith broke down early in the test match, and Matt Henry, who's been brilliant leading that attack in recent times, also broke down. So there were mitigating factors for New Zealand why they couldn't bowl them out. But still, that was nearly, they would have smashed the world record like the Australians smashed those guitars at Sydney 2000, where I remember watching it at South Stradbroke Island in full circle. Let
me give you one stat to put this in perspective. Double centuries in the fourth innings of a test match. There have been
seven ever.
Seven ever.
And like 2 of them are the Windies in the last 5 minutes, right?
Exactly.
Kyle?
Kyle Mayer's recently in Bangladesh. They're the last 2.
Yep.
In fact, they're almost all Windies. So George Headley's the first one in 1930. You've got Bill Edrich, who does it. Sonny Gavaskar does it. Gordon Greenwich does it. Then there's...
the Greenwich one's the brilliant one-down chase at Lords in 84.
Exactly. And then Nathan Astor when he goes crazy against England when they've got way too many to chase and it's just a have-a-go exhibition. And then, as you say, Kyle Mayer's a couple of years ago, 4 years back now, and Justin Graves. So the only 7 to have done it, 2 of them are recent, could be current, could be contemporary players.
Should say as well that Tom Latham passed 6,000 runs in Test cricket, which is not for nothing given his long and excellent career, often had to do a lot of hard work. Just before why don't we do the Test match that's playing at the moment and bring you up to speed there? I want to go to the World Test Championship table as well, because I think this is all quite interesting. But the Windies were bowled out for 205 yesterday, and we're into day 2, well and truly into day 2 now, where New Zealand have reached 112 for 2. So for the Windies batting, they had Shy Hope top score again in the first innings with 48. Blair Tickner picked up 4 for 32 for the Kiwis, and with the bat, Devon Conway's not out, 55, batting at the moment with Ravindra. Williamson was out for 37, and Kemar Roach has got one.
He's got one more, so he's got 8 to go.
Nearly at that mark. Just interested in the World Test Championship at the moment, Jeff. So, Australia have already won 5 from 5. I said earlier about the Victorian Shield team being pretty close to a home. If Australia keep going the way they're going, they could have this lockdown pretty early, because we know the way the percentages work, that sort of 60-something tends to make the final.
Yeah.
South Africa are at 75% at the moment. I don't think anyone else is above 50. There have been a lot of teams who have started this cycle poorly, and I'm a little bit interested in why we haven't seen a statement yet, and I'm not trying to kick England here, but they were way behind on their over 8 in the first innings.
Yep.
I think they were 4 behind. Not as far behind as Australia were, who were the beneficiaries of the Khawaja rule. But I never saw...
Because England got out quickly enough, you mean?
That's right. They were out in the 77th over. Australia, of course, made 5-11. I never saw a statement from the ICC about this. I know they recovered a bit of it with Will Jacks, but still, you know, the way I understood it was that there is some discretion here, but not much. So maybe they got given more leniency because it was a bloody hot day and they're like, you know, to hell with the calculations, we're going to just write it off. But I'm not sure whether, I guess my point here is that what I described on the Daily Show about that 60-80, no one really knowing, about the degree of discretion that the officials have around fines, it can and probably will affect whether a team makes the World Test final at some stage. So I think it's a bit too rubbery for me. I reckon that whilst there's so much discretion at play for something, because it's a percentage-based thing, you know, these things can turn on a dime. So anyway, that's that. And one more thing about New Zealand before we move off. It's confirmed what's going on next year. So New Zealand are here for 4 test matches in Australia for the summer. It's going to run Perth, then Adelaide Christmas test is locked in. So Perth, Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, the traditional spots. It's going to be an absolutely wild run. They're going to have to start those test matches as late as possible to give the Aussies some time off after South Africa, which won't end until like maybe the 10th of November or something like that, around that time roughly, if it's 3 test matches in a month. So I would anticipate that if it's the Christmas test again, and the first test is maybe a 5-day gap before, then we're looking at maybe a 10th of December start to the home summer tests. And straight after that, when they're finished at Sydney, they go to India to play 5 test matches in 6.5 weeks before they come back here for the sesquicentenary. It is a wild schedule. It is going to require unbelievably careful management. If they think they're going to have all of their players firing for all of this time, they're kidding themselves, because touring South Africa is never easy, and then a home summer has its challenges with the heat and the conditions and so on, and at the heat of the summer that is, and then going to India for a series where they won't be back-to-back test matches as such, but I went and mapped it out the other day. If they try and maintain this 5-day gap between each test model, that's fairly rigorous. So yeah, just a nod to next summer. It is going to be full on from the moment they arrive in South Africa to the moment they finish that sesquicentenary test. What does that mean? It's 3, 7, 13 test matches in that window.
They're going to need 20 players, might be playing Test cricket over that period of time. You know, you'd imagine the India squad will be somewhat different anyway, but there's just going to need to be a much more pragmatic approach. Broadcaster-wise, you can't be expecting... I mean, you know, Pat Cummins isn't captaining 13 Test matches in a row in those kind of conditions, right? There's just no way that you can feasibly make that happen.
Come on down, Pistol Pete Hanscom, captain of Australia and India. Heard it here first. Probably not, because Smith is obviously a tactical genius, and you probably want Smith somewhere near the captain's armband as and when they rotate through.
Probably.
Jeff, can you please give me an update on the business end of the Women's Big Bash League, the final this weekend?
Here we go. So the Sixers, they won their knockout by a run, and this is the bit that's going to be most interesting to people who listen to this show. The Final Word / Daniel Norcross obsession with leg buys, with DRS decisions. This actually happened at the business end of this game. They were playing Adelaide strikers. 18.4 overs, so 8 balls to go. They still needed a stack of runs from these. Amanda Wellington tries a scoop shot, nicks the ball into her pad. It runs away. She goes through for a run. She's given out leg before wicket. Challenges it. It's overturned, but the ball's dead because the finger went up before the run's completed. So she doesn't get the run. She's back on strike. Now, this one doesn't necessarily change the result of the game because they still needed, I think, 18 runs at this point. They needed a bunch. She doesn't score off the next ball, which means Bridget Patterson's on strike for the start of the last over and goes 4-4-6 to start that over off Ash Gardner. So had the run been given, Patterson would have been on strike for the last ball of the previous over, may not have kept the strike, may not have hit those boundaries, they might have lost by more. It's not like it happened off the very last ball when they needed one run. But, I mean, it ends up being decided by a run. probably the decisive bit is the fourth ball of the last over. Patterson takes a bye when they needed like 3 to win, instead of saying, I'm going to keep strike and try to hit a boundary myself off the last 2 balls to win it. And in the end, 2 wickets fall. Wellington gets out to Gardner, and then Sophie Eccleston's run out, coming back for a second. So the second run would have tied it and sent them to a super over. In the end, they lose by a run. But it does give you the illustration that in a tight chase at the very business end of it, that run was struck off when it shouldn't have been. She edged it into her pad and ran through. That was a run. Except that the umpire's given the decision. And I genuinely think they have to make a change on this and move it to the umpire gives an LBW call after whatever has happened subsequent has been completed. After any possible extras have been run, then you give the decision, and either those runs stand or they don't.
Umpires agree. It's purely down to whether anybody's listening at ICC headquarters.
But you could
You'd
do
like
it
to think they
domestically.
are.
I mean, the CA could do it for a domestic comp. They could change.
No,
those,
sure.
those,
But
those
when we
regs
refer to
themselves.
World Cups ending that way, and one will, I hope that someone who listens to this program in ICC Towers tells someone to tell someone to tell someone and get this sorted out. So what does that mean in terms of the final wash-up and what we've got coming this weekend?
It means there's a final tonight, so it might happen before this show goes out, I think. So the Melbourne Stars did finally make the top 4 and then immediately got knocked out by Perth. That was Beth Mooney and the secret world of Katie Mack making the runs up top for Melbourne, but then for Perth rather. But Lanning and Jones made the only scores for the Stars in the chase. So tonight it will be Perth Scorchers playing the Sixers. They're both vying to play the Hurricanes in the final.
Nice.
And Beth Mooney, by the way, 440 runs for the season so far. That makes 11 seasons in a row. She's played all 11 seasons. Her lowest run tally ever was 386. She's made 400 plus every other season,
Blimey.
including some 500s and some 700s. She's just under 5,500 runs in the WBBL. The absolute consistent machine.
Remarkable longevity that they've got these careers now, which are proper because of the way the comps worked, and they've played so much cricket. Until last year, they were double home and away, as in they were double round robin, home and away, which means that there is these enormous sample sizes and in turn these really big numbers. That's a nice thing about the WBBL, that these career numbers really do mean something.
Yeah. I mean, and they're extraordinary, some of the numbers that are stacking up there. But Beth Mooney's leading the front, and I will always feel secure as long as she's turning out in the WBBL.
Okay. So the winner of that to play the Cane Train in the final of the WBBL. Jeff, we've got one more break to take on the way to it. I'm going to tell you, you can sleep better too. I'm sleeping better. Goodness gracious me, I needed to be sleeping better. And I am, because I'm not snoring. Why am I not snoring? Well, I say that, anecdotally I'm not snoring, so I'm sleeping through the night. Because the little TENS machine is stimulating me tongue and it's sending it forward. And all the research and all the work that went into this. I was talking to a friend yesterday who said that, goodness me, my husband snores, he never stops, I'm sleeping on the sofa. I'm like, have I got a Christmas gift for you? Have I got a Christmas idea for you? If you are thinking about stopping snoring yourself or having your partner stop snoring, the Zeus Sleeps, 5% off TFW 2025. Easy code in the show notes. It could not be any more straightforward to make sure that you are able to stop snoring this Christmas. And why wouldn't you want to do that? You strap it on your chin and you're through to the semis without dropping a set.
You get your money back. I mean, that's the key part. If it doesn't work, you get your money back. It'll work for most people. The trials are very, very effective. Some people have a different reason that they snore, and if that's you, then they'll pop your refund back to you, and you're all set.
And the thing is, that they're having an amazing surge at the moment. They've done really well throughout the course of 2025. They're a business who are doing good. You know what I mean? They're a business that are achieving a social end that we can all support. Better sleep. You deserve to sleep better, like we are sleeping better. Zeus Sleeps. It's in the show notes. Get yourself one. Get yourself the discount. Sleep refreshed this summer and or winter.
It is time for a break. We'll be back in a second. It's the final word. It's the weekly show.
I was going to rip my boots off again.
Well, yeah, go on.
Yeah, I'll do it. I can do
it. Speaking of hanging up the boots.
So sore after yesterday.
Hanging up the boots in the IPL, perhaps, might be Glenn Maxwell. He hasn't said that about it being permanent. He just said it for this season. But it feels like that might be.
No, that's right. The reason I got my boots off, by the way, Big Boots UK, how sexy are these things? So many people have been saying to me that they have been seeing me put it up to the camera. So one last time, for the time being, get yourself some of them. 10% off, link in the show notes, Big Boots UK. All Aussie boots from that distributor in England. So if you want Australian boots and Australian quality boots of all different shapes and sizes and varieties and whatever else, go there and get yourself that for Christmas as well. Yeah, look, he's not the only guy who's not playing this IPL. Faf and Moeen are both elected to play in the PSL, which is interesting given they've had long and productive IPL careers. But Glenn put a statement out and it kind of suggests he's done with it, and that's fine. He's played 1 million IPL seasons.
Yep.
He's got young family. It requires you being away from home for 4 months to play in the IPL. They've got a T20 World Cup immediately before it. Like, you know, decisions that aren't exclusively about extracting every last dollar out of the game is something that we talk about for administrators. So it applies for players sometimes too. I mean, the auction is only 5 days away from now on the 16th of December. So there'll be more focus on that next week, I'm sure, when we have got a sense of who's going where and for what extraordinary price tags. But, you know, Glenn's IPL career has been a beauty. He's had a couple of the all-time great seasons. Of course, it's been inconsistent too, and that's a part of his story as a player, full stop. But his high points in the IPL were magnificent. You can read it all in The Showman if you really want to. But, you know, like I'm proud of him for making this call on his terms.
Yeah, well, whether it is a longer call, and you know, he's somebody who has changed his mind about a few things over the journey as well. So you never know. He might be storming back in. He might have
Who knows?
He might have a 7th stint with Kings 11 Punjab.
I hope he plays does a
year.
7th stint at Kings 11 and does a full season of county cricket and makes 1,000 runs playing in the championship. Something like that.
Runs.
That'd be so much fun.
Yeah, the dream is on. Not so much for Kate Cross, who had the England women's contract list. She's not got one, which is interesting. You could say, okay, well, you know, she's an older player and they've got to a point where they're going to refresh and move on. But she's not that much older, and she's vastly experienced. And the main problem for England in the women's team is that they can't make a run. So dropping off one of your most productive bowlers seems an odd one.
Look, it's one of those life moves pretty fast things. We talked about it in relation to Usman Khawaja earlier in the program. Cross is a victim of having had a little bit of bad luck and a bad game and a bit of bad luck just before that World Cup squad was announced. She went from being, was it the one-day bowler of the year for the ICC not long ago,
and captaining,
leading the attack, captaining the team last year in Ireland, to losing her contract. It's a very clear sign that Charlotte Edwards wants to draw a line underneath that generation to a point. But in saying that, I think what you see here is a number of players on the second year of their contract. So players like Nat Sivabrunt, who's the captain, so slightly different, but Danny White-Hodge, Amy Jones, Heather Knight in particular. I wonder where they're at in 12 months when the second year of their contracts have come to an end. And a whole bunch of one-year deals. For example, Tammy Beaumont's on a one-year deal. Not saying that Tammy Beaumont should be jettisoned, but she's also of that generation. So there are players who you can easily see joining Cross as former England players in the next sort of 12 to 24 months. And one of those being Heather Knight, who had a brilliant World Cup, but interestingly, she's not going to be playing in the 100 next year. Instead, she's taking a back office role at the London Spirit. I say back office. She's going to be the director of cricket there. So she'll be, for
the women's team.
For the women's team. Yeah. So she's changing.
It's not across both.
No,
sides.
she's basically running the women's team. So she's still on an England contract, as I mentioned before. She'll still play for England. She's still very much in the best 11. But a nod to Heather Knight post-cricket that she's looking at taking, I suppose, is cricket administration.
Coach. She's not going
to
play.
No, that would be lovely. But no, look, she said she did it last year when she missed the season with that hamstring tear. She's like, well, I enjoyed doing it. I'll do that again rather than playing in another T20 comp, or another 100-ball comp in this case. So well played, Heather Knight, one of our faves on the show, always has been.
Still technically a T20, according to stats.
Right, but you know what I mean. It's just, to her, what's playing in another domestic tournament worth to her versus the chance to start accelerating her post-cricketing journey now. I think that's savvy from her, and good on her for it.
Your friend Benny Howell, who you talked to about ADHD, has won the PCA Inclusion Award. That's the sort of Players Association in England. We've been talking a lot about Players Associations recently with Paul Marsh on the show and with Storytime when you were talking about Tim May, and now Benny Howell for the work he's doing on neurodivergence. I
think this is pretty cool. I'm not saying that we're a huge part of the story, but we're at least a little part of the story when he was so open and forward in talking about neurodivergence and ADHD and his advocacy within the game, and the Players Association, the PCA, have recognised him. So a big thumbs up to Benny Howell, who is one of the most interesting people in cricket. And yeah, his influence will continue. He's moving clubs next year, actually, as well as moving to Trent Bridge. So
Yeah.
he's having the journeyman continues his journey deep into his career. So that's a nice thing for Benny Howe. And speaking of shout-outs, a nod to our pals at the University of Western Australia. I thought I'd pop this in. I don't really know exactly what's going on here. It's to do with swing bowling and research they're doing on that. So they're moving from illegal actions to learning more about why the ball swings. And, well, if it's one thing that we need to know more about, it's how the ball swings.
One thing I want to know, because they're coming from WA as well, is Brady Vidler, one of the students who was working on this, related to Callum Vidler, the fast bowler? Could be.
Wrong side of the country, but, we can...
We can stretch. So Ollie Moran...
Longest trip in football, Brisbane to Perth.
Ollie Moran and Brady Vidler are the fourth-year students who were looking at swing. So here is the note as it's written. Set up a net under lab conditions, indoor, no wind, cloud or other variables, to assess ball conditions to swing and drift, seam angle, ball roughness, delivery speed and spin rate. Using 3D tracking, the swing was found to be as conventionally understood, as in the seam angles to slip or fine leg for away swing and in swing. But what was found for spin bowling and drift was that seam angle played a bigger role than ball revs, breaking conventional wisdom.
This is interesting.
So people would always say, well, Shane Warne drifts the ball because he puts so many revs on it, it drifts towards the leg stump. But was it more to do with the positioning of the seam?
Right. Well, I don't know how that means for me. I rip the shit out of it with a view to trying to get some drift. Yeah. Doesn't always work.
No, might be
just the way the seams.
You might be ripping your shoulder off for no reason.
Yeah.
So they're offering the net as a training facility as well. The net that they've been doing their bowling in. So
I'm going to go
get
next
in there
year
and face UWA.
When I'm in Perth next year for the first test of the series, please get me back and get my action looked at for different reasons.
UWA.
By the University of WA. That's it for the program today. If you like what we do, patreon.com/Final Word. You got the link in the show notes. That'll give you the chance to win one of the beers from Stomping Ground, or the case of that. You can buy it now as well. Of course, the broad T-shirt's out on sale too if you want to get that for yourself for Christmas, or the boots or the Zeus and all the rest of it. We're just so thrilled to have a show that's ticking along so beautifully in this very busy summer. The next show in the feed will be Story Time over the weekend, which we're about to record now. Thank you, Emma John. Thank you to everybody who backs us in all sorts of different ways. And thank you to Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm. Bye-bye.
See you at Stomping Ground.